Captain Ross stared out of his office window at the endless sea of stars, his four hands tapping nervously on his desk. The space station's artificial lighting reflected off his blue-tinted skin as he reviewed the latest batch of rejected job applications on his screen. Another day, another set of qualified pilots and crew members turning down positions at Stellar Solutions Incorporated. "Sir," his assistant Belle chimed in from the doorway, her antenna twitching with nervous energy. "The situation is getting worse. 3 more crews quit this morning. They're saying the outer rim routes are too dangerous." Ross let out a long sigh, his secondary breathing holes whistling slightly. "Too dangerous? We're a shipping company. What do they expect? These routes have been standard for decades." "Well," Belle shuffled through her data pad, "the recent increase in solar storms and pirate activity has made many species uncomfortable." She paused, then added, "The board is demanding a solution by the end of the week." Ross turned his chair around, all 6 of his eyes focusing on Belle. "We've tried everything. We've doubled the pay, offered premium life insurance, even thrown in free vacation packages to the pleasure moons of Centauri Prime." He threw his upper set of hands into the air. "Who's left to hire? The only species we haven't approached are those primitive death worlders from—" He stopped mid-sentence as Belle's antenna perked up with interest. "No," he said firmly. No, absolutely not. Don't even think about it." "But sir," Belle stepped forward, her excitement evident in the slight glow emanating from her thorax. "Humans have been cleared for interstellar work for almost 5 years now. They've proven themselves quite capable in various fields." Ross leaned back in his chair, which automatically adjusted to support his tail. "Capable? Belle, they're insane. Do you know what their planet is like? They evolved on a world with crushing gravity, extreme temperature variations, and deadly levels of oxygen in the atmosphere. They eat spicy food for fun." "For fun, Belle?" "Exactly." Belle's antennae were now fully extended with enthusiasm. "They're perfect for our outer rim routes. Think about it. What we consider dangerous conditions are probably just a normal Tuesday for them." Ross opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. He pulled up the company's financial projections on his holographic display. The numbers were not good. If they couldn't maintain their outer rim shipping routes, Stellar Solutions would lose its primary contracts within months. "Sir," Belle continued, sensing his wavering resolve, "did you know humans have something called extreme sports on their planet? They jump out of perfectly good aircraft for entertainment. They climb frozen mountains without safety equipment. They dive into deep ocean trenches just to see what's down there. That's precisely why hiring them would be madness," Ross protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "The insurance department would have a fit." "Actually," Belle quickly pulled up another document, "I checked our policy. Humans are classified as Class D specialized workers. Their insurance rates are surprisingly low because they have such a high survival rate in extreme conditions." Ross sat in silence for a long moment, all 6 eyes blinking in sequence as he processed this information. The latest urgent message from corporate headquarters flashed on his screen. "Find CRE or FAC's contract termination." "Fine," he finally said, his scales shifting to a lighter shade of blue in resignation. "Draw up the job posting." "But," he held up one finger from his lower right hand, "we start with just 1 ship, a test run, and I want the most qualified humans you can find. No rookies." Belle's thorax glowed brighter with triumph. "Already done, sir. I took the liberty of drafting the job listing. We just need your approval to post it on Earth's employment networks." Ross stared at her in surprise, then let out a short laugh. "You knew I'd agree, didn't you?" "Sir," Belle said with a slight bow, "when all logical options are exhausted, the only choice left, however improbable, must be the right one." As Belle left his office, Ross turned back to the window, watching the ships come and go from the station's docking bays. "Humans," he muttered to himself, shaking his head. The board is going to think I've lost my mind. Little did he know, this desperate decision would change not just the future of Stellar Solutions, but the entire galactic shipping industry forever. 3 days after posting the job listings, Captain Ross's office communication system was overwhelmed. Belle rushed in, her antenna practically tied in knots with excitement. "Sir, we've received over 2,000 applications from Earth." She waved her datapad frantically. "And they all seem eager." Ross scrolled through the applications on his screen, all 6 eyes widening. This can't be right. These humans are actually excited about working in the Outer Rim. Look at this one. Previous experience includes deep-sea welding in active volcanic zones. Are they making this up? "No, sir," Bell replied, pulling up the applicant's credentials. "I verified everything. Humans actually do these jobs on their home planet, for regular pay." The first interviews were scheduled for the next day. Ross prepared his office, adjusting the gravity to Earth standard levels, an uncomfortable strain on his joints, and increasing the temperature to what humans called room temperature, practically freezing, in his opinion. The first candidate arrived precisely on time. Jack Walker stood 6 feet tall, with weathered skin and bright eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Ross noticed he didn't even seem to be using the low-gravity assistance devices that most species required on the station. "Please, sit down." Ross gestured to the reinforced chair in front of his desk. "Your application is interesting." Jack smiled. "Thanks. I've got to say, I'm really excited about this opportunity. Been looking to get into space work ever since you folks made contact." Ross shuffled through his notes. "You've worked as a deep-sea salvage operator." "Yep. 15 years experience. Specialized in emergency recovery operations in the Pacific Trench. You know, the really deep stuff where the pressure can crush standard submarines." Jack spoke about it, as casually as someone might discuss their morning meal routine. "And why," Ross asked carefully, "would you want to leave that for Outer Rim shipping routes?" Jack's eyes lit up. "Are you kidding? This is a chance to see the galaxy. Plus, from what I've read about your routes, the work seems pretty straightforward. No methane storms like we get in the deep Atlantic, and way better visibility than the oil rig repair jobs I used to do." Ross blinked, all 6 eyes in sequence. "Mr. Walker, are you aware that these routes pass through asteroid fields?" "Sure. Read that in the job description. Sounds fun. Probably a lot like navigating underwater cave systems, just with more room to maneuver." Jack leaned forward. "And please, call me Jack." The interviews continued throughout the day. Each human candidate seemed more incredibly qualified and terrifyingly enthusiastic than the last. One woman had spent years leading rescue operations on Mount Everest. Another had worked as a smoke jumper, literally jumping into forest fires. A third had experience maintaining research stations in Antarctica. By the end of the day, Ross's head was spinning. Bell brought him a calming beverage as they reviewed the candidates. "They're all insane," Ross muttered, taking a long drink. "Completely and utterly insane, and absolutely perfect for the job. So we're hiring them." Bell's antenna perked up hopefully. Ross nodded slowly. "Yes. Start with Jack Walker as team leader. His deep-sea experience seems most relevant to space work. Take 4 others with complementary skills." He paused. "And Bell, update our ship's safety protocols. I have a feeling our standard emergency procedures might be a bit restrictive for this crew." As Bell hurried off to prepare the contracts, Ross added a note to his personal log. "Day 47, standard year 2184. Either I've just made the best decision of my career, or I've completely lost my mind. Possibly both. May the stellar winds have mercy on us all." Outside his office window, a small asteroid tumbled past the station. Ross watched it with new eyes, wondering how his human crew might view such hazards not as dangers, but as opportunities. The thought both terrified and excited him. The cargo ship Star Runner hung in space like a silver needle against the black canvas of stars. Inside, Jack and his human crew were going through their first day orientation with the ship's existing alien crew members. Things weren't going quite as expected. "You keep this artificial gravity at only 0.7 Earth standard?" Jack asked, bouncing slightly on his feet. "Mind if we crank it up a bit?" The team and I were hoping to do our regular workout routines. The ship's engineer, Trix, stared at him with all three eyes. "Workout? Routines? You want to deliberately strain your bodies in higher gravity?" "Well, yeah," replied Lisa, one of the human crew members. She took a sip from her steaming cup. "Got to stay in shape. Speaking of which, your coffee maker is amazing. The caffeine content is through the roof." Trix's skin turned a pale shade of green. "That's not a beverage dispenser. That's the emergency reactor cleaning solution." The humans looked at their cups, then at each other. Jack shrugged. "Tastes better than the stuff we had on oil rigs. Anyone want seconds?" 2 weeks into their first voyage, the Star Runner approached the notorious Scatter Belt, an asteroid field that had claimed 3 ships in the past year. The alien crew prepared for their standard 2-day detour around the danger zone. "Why are we turning?" Jack asked from his position at the navigation console. He had picked up the ship's controls surprisingly quickly, claiming they were just like my old submersible, but with an extra dimension. Captain Ross's voice crackled over the comm. "Standard procedure, Mr. Walker. The scatter belt is rated as unsurvivable by our navigation systems." Jack studied the sensor readings, then pressed a few buttons. A holographic display of the asteroid field appeared. "Look at these patterns. These rocks are moving in predictable orbits. It's just like navigating underwater debris during a hurricane." He turned to his human crewmates. "What do you think? Manual navigation?" The other humans gathered around the display, offering suggestions and pointing out possible routes. The alien crew watched in horror as they plotted a course straight through the middle of the asteroid field. "Impossible," the chief navigator declared. "The computer says there's only a 0.1% chance of survival." Lisa grinned. "Better odds than that avalanche rescue I did last year." "Jack, want me on the auxiliary thrusters?" Captain Ross's voice came through again, sounding strained. "Mr. Walker, I cannot authorize this course of action. The risk is—" "Sir," Jack interrupted politely, "we can spend 2 days going around, burning fuel and missing our delivery window, or we can trust my team to do what we do best, handle the impossible. Your choice." There was a long pause. The alien crew held their breath, those that had breath to hold. "Proceed," Ross finally said. "But if we explode, I'm noting it in your performance review." What followed was 30 minutes of the most impressive flying the Star Runner had ever experienced. Jack's hands danced over the controls, while Lisa managed the thrusters with precision. The humans called out readings and suggestions, working together like a well-oiled machine. The ship weaved through the asteroid field, sometimes with only meters to spare. When they emerged on the other side, the alien crew stared in stunned silence at the navigation display. They had just cut 2 days off their delivery time. The ship's communication officer was the first to speak. That was amazing, but also terrifying, mostly terrifying. Jack simply logged the course into the ship's computer. Pretty smooth sailing, actually. Though I do miss the pressure warnings you get in deep-sea work. Adds a bit of excitement, you know. In his office back at the station, Captain Ross watched the recorded footage of their passage through the scatter belt. His scales had turned an interesting shade of purple, but there was a hint of a smile on his face. "Computer," he said quietly, "update Mr. Walker's crew designation from experimental to specialized emergency response team, and order me something strong from the station's bar. I have a feeling I'm going to need it." Red warning lights flashed across the Star Runner's bridge as the ship's AI announced the approaching danger. "Warning. Class 5 solar storm detected. All ships advised to seek immediate shelter." The ship's communication system crackled with urgent messages as every vessel in the sector scrambled to reach safe harbor. On the main screen, a massive wall of solar radiation approached, its deadly energy lighting up space like an angry sunset. Jack studied the sensor readings with unusual interest. "Hey Lisa, doesn't this remind you of those big waves off the coast of Hawaii?" Lisa looked up from her station, a gleam in her eyes. "You mean the ones we used to surf during hurricane season? Now that you mention it." The alien crew members exchanged worried glances. They had learned over the past few months that when the humans got that particular look, something either brilliant or terrifying was about to happen. Usually both. "Captain Ross," Jack called over the comm link, requesting permission to try something unconventional. Back at the station, Ross was already reaching for his stress relief medication. "Define unconventional, Mr. Walker." "Well, sir, this radiation wave has a specific pattern. If we adjust our shields and ride the front edge, we could use its momentum to push us straight to the mining colony. Like surfing a wave." There was a long pause. "Like surfing?" "Yes, sir. The principles are similar to riding ocean waves back on Earth. The radiation wave creates a push effect that we can." "Are you suggesting," Ross interrupted, his voice rising slightly, "that we treat a deadly solar storm like some sort of recreational activity?" "More like an opportunity, sir," Jack replied cheerfully. "We can either hide for 3 days waiting for it to pass, or we can use it to reach the colony in 2 hours. Plus, we'll actually be safer riding the wave than trying to outrun it." The alien crew watched in fascination as Jack and his team quickly explained their plan. They would adjust the ship's shields to create a sort of surfboard effect, using the radiation wave's own energy to propel them forward while staying protected inside its leading edge. "This is madness," the ship's engineer muttered, but he was already helping Lisa modify the shield configurations. Ross's voice came back over the comm. "The other ships are calling us insane for not running. The mining colony says we're about to commit suicide." "Trust us, Captain," Jack said, his hands moving confidently over the controls. "This isn't even the craziest thing I've done this week." What followed was either the most brilliant or most reckless maneuver in the history of space travel. The Star Runner turned to face the approaching storm, its modified shields glowing as they caught the leading edge of the radiation wave. For a moment, the ship shuddered violently. Then, like a surfer catching the perfect wave, the Star Runner shot forward, riding the front of the solar storm. The humans whooped with excitement as they guided the ship through the massive energy wave, using subtle adjustments to stay in the sweet spot where the radiation actually protected them from the worst effects. 2 hours later, the Star Runner glided smoothly into the mining colony's dock, its hull slightly warm, but completely intact. Behind them, other ships were still scrambling for shelter as the storm raged on. The colony's dockmaster stared at them through the view screen, all 4 of his mouths hanging open. "How? What? Why?" "Special delivery," Jack announced cheerfully. "Hope you don't mind us arriving early. Beautiful storm you have out there." Later that day, as the incident reports flooded into his office, Captain Ross found himself doing something unexpected: laughing. He drafted a quick message to corporate headquarters. "Human crew performance exceeding all expectations. Request permission to expand program. P.S. Please update our insurance policies to cover creative use of natural disasters." On his desk, next to a growing pile of formal complaints about reckless behavior, sat a performance report showing that the Star Runner had just set a new company record for fastest emergency delivery under extreme conditions. The boardroom of Stellar Solutions Incorporated's headquarters buzzed with nervous energy. 12 executive board members, representing 8 different alien species, sat around a massive holographic table. At the center of the display floated a replay of the Star Runner's now famous solar storm surfing incident. "This is completely unacceptable." Director Pax slammed all 3 of his appendages on the table. They turned a Class 5 solar storm into a sporting event. "Do you know how many safety regulations they violated?" 47. Captain Ross replied calmly from his seat. But they also set new records for delivery time, fuel efficiency, and cargo safety. Not a single crate was damaged. Another board member, her crystalline form shimmering with agitation, spoke up. But what about their latest request? A Parker training course in the cargo bay. The insurance department nearly had a collective meltdown when they saw that proposal. Ross activated another hologram, showing the ship's performance statistics. Our accident rates have dropped by 40% since the humans joined. They insist this training will help them respond even faster in emergencies. Apparently, they already practice something similar in the engine room when they think no one is watching. The room erupted in chaos as various executives argued back and forth. Some demanded the immediate removal of all human crew members, while others pointed to the impressive improvement in the company's numbers. They drink maintenance fluid for pleasure. One director shouted, "But our fuel costs are down 35%. Another countered, "They voluntarily expose themselves to increased gravity, and our delivery times are the best in the sector." The debate was interrupted by a message from the company's biggest client, displayed in glowing letters above the table. Contract renewal dependent on maintaining current delivery standards. Human crews specifically requested for hazardous routes. A heavy silence fell over the room. Director Pax's scales had turned an interesting shade of gray. "They're requesting humans, specifically." "Yes," Ross nodded, trying to hide his smile. "Apparently, news of their abilities has spread. We've received similar requests from 6 other major clients. They're willing to pay premium rates for human-crewed ships." The crystalline board member sparkled thoughtfully. "What exactly do these humans do during their off-duty hours that requires a special training course?" Ross activated one more hologram, showing security footage from the Star Runner. The board watched in fascinated horror as human crew members efficiently navigated tight spaces, climbed walls, and performed acrobatic maneuvers through the ship's maintenance areas. "They call it staying in shape," Ross explained. "Jack says it's similar to how they train for emergency situations on Earth. Something about being ready for anything. And this parkour course they want to build. They claim it will help them respond faster during emergencies, and given their track record." Ross let the sentence hang in the air. The board members looked at each other, then back at the performance numbers floating above the table. Finally, Director Pax spoke, his voice resigned. "Approved the training course. But," he held up an appendage, "they must record all training sessions. If they're going to do impossible things, we might as well learn from them." As the meeting ended, Ross received a message from the Star Runner. It was a simple request for permission to test the structural integrity of the cargo bay ceiling. He quickly typed back, "Approved. Just don't tell me how you're going to do it." The reply came instantly. "Thanks, Captain. Don't worry. Lisa used to design obstacle courses for military training. This will be totally safe. Well, safe by human standards anyway." Ross stared at the message for a long moment, then began drafting a memo to the insurance department. Some things, he had learned, were better left unexplained. The emergency signal blared through every ship and station in the sector. A cargo vessel belonging to their biggest competitor, Swift Star Shipping, had suffered a critical engine failure. The ship was being pulled into the atmosphere of a gas giant, its crew trapped aboard as the vessel slowly spiraled downward. "Rescue impossible," announced the sector's emergency AI. "Atmospheric pressure exceeds safety limits. Radiation levels beyond acceptable parameters. Gravity well too strong for standard rescue operations." Jack and his team watched the emergency broadcast from the Star Runner's newly installed training room. They had just finished what they called a light workout, activities that made their alien crewmates dizzy just watching. "Hey Lisa," Jack called out, studying the data scrolling across the screen. "Doesn't this remind you of that deep-sea rescue we did near the volcanic vent?" Lisa wiped sweat from her forehead with a towel. "You mean when we had to deal with crushing pressure, toxic gases, and intense heat all at once?" She grinned. "Good times." "Captain Ross," Jack activated the comm link, requesting permission to attempt rescue operation. Back at the station, Ross didn't even bother reaching for his stress medication. He'd run out last week anyway. "Mr. Walker, every rescue ship in the sector has declared this impossible." "Yes, sir. That's why we should do it." Jack's voice was calm and confident. "The gas giant's atmosphere is actually less dangerous than some of the deep-sea environments we worked in. Plus, we've been practicing high-gravity maneuvers in our training room." "You mean that Parker course you built?" "Exactly. The increased gravity setting is perfect for this situation." Ross looked at the emergency data, then at the growing crowd of officials gathering at the station's command center. Among them were executives from Swift Star Shipping, looking increasingly desperate. "What's your plan?" Ross asked, knowing he was probably going to regret this. The plan, as it turned out, was exactly the kind of insanity that only humans could devise. The Star Runner would dive into the gas giant's atmosphere using modified shields, similar to their solar storm surfing technique. Once they reached the stricken vessel, they would attempt something the humans called a hot extraction. "We'll basically treat it like an underwater rescue," Jack explained to the horrified rescue coordinators. "The atmosphere's not too different from the pressure at extreme ocean depths. We've got suits rated for worse conditions." The rescue attempt was broadcast live across the sector. Millions watched as the Star Runner plunged into the swirling storms of the gas giant. The ship's external cameras showed massive lightning bolts and waves of compressed gas that could crush standard vessels. Inside the Star Runner, the human crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this, though their alien colleagues couldn't understand how jumping off cargo containers and climbing walls had prepared them for a gas giant rescue. "Approaching target," Lisa announced. "Pressure hull holding steady, just like that time in the Marianas Trench, but with better visibility." The actual rescue took less than 20 minutes. The humans, wearing suits that made them look like deep-sea divers, crossed the gap between ships using guide ropes and magnetic anchors. They moved through the crushing atmosphere as if they were simply having another training day. When the Star Runner emerged from the gas giant's atmosphere, carrying both its crew and the rescued team, the sector erupted in celebration. The rescued crew, though traumatized, couldn't stop talking about their saviors. "They just walked through that atmosphere like it was nothing," one of them reported. "They were joking about something called scuba diving while carrying us out." In his office, Ross watched the celebration unfold on its screens. A message from Swift Star Shipping CEO flashed before him. "Whatever you're paying those humans, we'll double it." Ross smiled and typed back a simple response. "They're not for sale, but I know where you can hire your own." 1 year after hiring the first human crew, Captain Ross stood at his office window, watching ships come and go from the station. The view hadn't changed, but everything else had. The Star Runner was docking, returning from another successful delivery. Its hull now bore distinctive markings, proud scars from asteroid fields, solar storms, and that memorable rescue in the gas giant. But more noticeable were the modifications visible across its surface: enhanced shield generators, reinforced cargo bays, and what the humans insisted on calling their surf mode propulsion system. "Sir," Belle entered his office, her antenna twitching with amusement. "The latest batch of human applications just arrived. You might want to see this one." Ross looked at his data pad and blinked all 6 eyes. Previous experience: volcano tour guide and Arctic survival instructor. "Is this real?" "Completely verified." Belle nodded. "She also trains emergency responders in something called extreme weather rescue operations." Ross chuckled, remembering when such qualifications would have horrified him. Now they seemed almost normal. Almost. The door chimed, and Jack walked in, looking relaxed despite just returning from what the ship's log described as a slight problem with a magnetic storm. "Captain," he grinned, "you'll be happy to know we've improved our storm riding technique. Only used half the shield power this time. Lisa says we can probably teach the technique to other crews now." "Other crews," Ross mused, looking at a display showing Stellar Solutions' current fleet. Where once there had been a single experimental human crew, now merely 30% of their ships had human team members. Their company had become the undisputed leader in difficult route deliveries and emergency operations. Speaking of teaching, Jack continued, remember that Parker training course we installed? 3 alien crew members asked to join our sessions yesterday. They're actually pretty good once they got over their fear of falling. Ross brought up another report on his screen. Accident rates across the fleet had dropped to historic lows, while efficiency had skyrocketed. Other shipping companies were scrambling to copy their success, but Stellar Solutions had a full year's head start in learning how to work with human crews. Sir, Bell interrupted, it's time for your lecture at the Academy. Ah yes, Ross thought. Another change. He now gave regular talks to the Galactic Shipping Academy about innovation through species diversity. Today's topic, why what looks like madness might be brilliance. Oh, and Captain, Jack called as Ross prepared to leave. The crew has a suggestion for the new ship we're getting next month. We were thinking, since we'll be running the really dangerous routes, maybe we could add some specialized equipment. Nothing major, just some climbing gear, emergency pressure suits, and maybe a small surfboard for the captain's office. You know, as a mascot. Ross stared at him for a moment, then laughed. Submit the request to engineering. But please, don't tell me how you plan to use the climbing gear. Some things are better left to human creativity. As he walked to the academy, Ross passed the station's main observation deck. A group of new recruits, a mix of humans and aliens, were watching the Star Runner dock. The aliens were pointing out the ship's battle scars with pride, while the humans were already discussing ways to improve its performance in the next solar storm. Back in his office, Bell updated the company's recruitment materials. The new slogan read, Stellar Solutions Incorporated, where impossible is just another word for not trying hard enough. And below that, in slightly smaller text, human applicants especially welcome. Experience with what other species consider certain death is a plus. Ross's original log entry from a year ago still hung on his office wall. Either I've just made the best decision of my career, or I've completely lost my mind. Looking at the thriving company around him, he finally knew the answer. Sometimes the best decisions look exactly like madness until they change the whole galaxy.